Good morning, everyone. It's 11 o'clock on Sunday, and we're here to help you wake up
and smell the rosin.
Yes, and today, of course, well, to be honest, we were thinking instead of having our coffee cups this morning, a couple of days ago, we thought we were going to have tamales and caldo because it was so nice and chill outside, but obviously, we got back to our wonderful valley weather where there are only two seasons, hot and hotter, right?
Yeah.
So, and today, of course, we're going to start with our little, we're going to ask Vector what the weather is like today.
Hey, Vector.
He's angry.
Hey, Vector. What's the weather like today?
Isn't that nice? All right, thank you, Vector. That was really, really nice. Good robot, Vector. Hey, Vector. Okay, I think he's never seen his reflection. I think he's a little startled about what he's seeing. Hey, Vector. Good robot. Yes, he's very happy. So now back to the regular programming. Thank you, Vector, for the weather report. Okay, guys, so today we have some exciting things to talk about. And Esther, you take away.
Well, first we're talking about area auditions, which actually I think you should talk about.
Oh, yes,
because you know more about that than me. But yeah, go ahead.
So this year it was interesting because I've never had students in my private studio who did area auditions, but this year I do have some students from different regions, and I guess some of them are already getting ready for area auditions. The cuts came out there on TMA website, so in case if you are in one of those regions who is doing area auditions, make sure and get in touch with your orchestra directors to find out when and how to do it properly. We just had our online clinic that went really, really well.
We did. We had an online all-state orchestral excerpt clinic for violins and cellos, and we talked about it a little bit last weekend, but it went really, really well. We had a great time. We had a really good turnout, and I think that's pretty much it. It was a good clinic. We just wanted to mention it just in case anyone was interested in having another one. We'd be happy to do another one if there's enough demand. So let us know if you're interested in that. But otherwise, yeah, it was a great clinic. It was a great time.
And we wanted to thank all of you who, if you participated in the clinic, thank you so much. Everyone was wonderful. And especially the orchestra directors, my friends, private teachers, the Bowery Foundation that provided scholarships for the participants.
Yes, that was amazing.
Yes, thank you so much, everyone.
It really made it possible for so many people.
Yes, that's right.
I think pretty much everybody was on some sort of scholarship from the foundation, which was wonderful.
Yes.
And we're so happy that we're so grateful to the Bowery Foundation for making it possible for these students to, have this learning experience and for us to provide it. It's really exciting.
Yeah, thank you so much again, the orchestra directors and Bowery Foundation for your support, and participants for wonderful, wonderful and hard work that we did. So Bowery Trio concert.
Yes, so this is kind of some exciting news. So I am a member of a trio that was founded in New York City. I'm a founding member of the Bowery Trio, it consists of me, my friend who's a clarinetist named Mark Allen Jr., and my good friend Allison, who's a pianist, Allison Wong. And the three of us actually established this trio in New York City while we were all in graduate school. And we did a couple of live concerts and a couple of projects before the pandemic hit. Now we're actually all in different parts of the U.S. Because of the pandemic and because of having to leave the city. So we're doing an online concert, and it's going to be very special because it's going to be a live broadcast of pre-recorded works, but it's not going to be your average recording. It's going to be a pre-recorded concert of works that we've meshed together from all different parts of the U.S. So our pianist is going to play, and then we're going to play along with that recording and record it and mesh them together, as you've seen a lot of people doing kind of distant chamber music by meshing videos together. So it's going to be a really fun project. We're really excited. The concert is going to be on October 3rd at 8 p.m. Eastern. So I will post the link in the description just to be sure that I have the time correct and the time zone. That's one thing. When you're all in different time zones, you have to be sure. But we do have a poster with all the correct information on it. So I'll post it just to be sure I told you the right time zone and everything. I already messed up a time zone. I was having a meeting with some composers, and we were talking about some composition projects with some composers in another country, and we were all in other states. So not only were we in different time zones, all three of us, but we were also in a different time zone, like from other country. And we had a meeting that was supposed to be at 9 a.m. and I thought it was at 9 p.m. And
oh boy,
I made it. I was like 5 minutes late, but it was just really. It's been really fun with all the Zooming and everybody all over the place. It's a little confusing, but it's exciting. So definitely tune in for that. It's going to be on YouTube Live on the Bowery Trio channel. Mm-hmm. So I'll share that link when we get closer to the date. The link will actually be shared on our social media accounts on Facebook and Instagram. And also on our website.
Maybe we should put those in the comments.
Yeah, so that's all the information's all going to be on the poster. It's like a virtual poster that I'll post. And yeah, everything's going to be there. And we'll be posting the links probably shortly before the concert begins. It's going to mainly take place on YouTube Live. And then there will be a Zoom discussion afterwards because our good friend Logan he composed a piece for us to premiere on this concert.
That's so cool. That's really cool.
It's really cool. So it's going to be a really great concert with some, older, more classical works and then some new premieres. So this is going to be really exciting. And the conversation afterwards in the Zoom chat Logan's going to be there. So you'll have a chance to ask us about the performance process and also Logan about the composition process and what inspired him. So if you're an aspiring composer, if you like arranging things, or if you just want to know more about playing chamber music from a distance, definitely attend the discussion afterwards too, and then we can talk about that and answer all your questions.
Well, I'm definitely interested, so I'll be there.
Well,
I remember, and you guys, they have a really unique sound. Not only all of them are wonderful, and of course she's my favorite, but seriously, because you have piano, clarinet, and cello, it's a really cool sound. I really enjoyed it.
And you'd be really surprised. I guess it's not super surprising, but the cello and the clarinet complement each other so well. It's such a nice sound, and I didn't realize how much I would enjoy it because we were all friends. We were like, let's do this. There's not a lot of people who are our ensemble that, play a lot of repertoire. There's not a ton of repertoire, and if we can uncover some repertoire that's there for this kind of ensemble, that would be really exciting. And Daryl says hi. Dobre utra.
Oh, dobre utra. Dobre utra is good morning in Russian. Yeah.
And then he said something at the bitch. I don't know what that says. I'm not sure.
Oh, he said he's impressed in Russian. Thank you, Daryl. That's so wonderful. Daryl is actually. He has been doing really well playing violin, and one of those distant, lesson situations that sometimes works out really, really well. Well, I'm glad that you're here, and you guys, if you're here, give us a shout. We would love to see, if you're from Texas and if you are a high schooler or a high school director, and we would love to see how many districts are represented right now. If you're here, if you can let us know what number district you're from, that would be really fun.
That would be great.
And speaking of links, we wanted to just tell you a little bit about some of our friends who were posting videos on their YouTube channels that we came across lately, and we really enjoyed it.
Yes. So I actually have it pulled up here. So our friend San Ken, she's an educator. Good friend of ours on YouTube, and we have a lot of correspondence on the YouTube platform and comments and lives. It's really fun. She actually just posted a day ago middle school etude number 1 for, I believe, all region, for region 15, and she posted it at a practice tempo, 8th note equals 72. It's the Dotzauer exercises for cello book 1, So definitely check that out if you have a chance, because it's a really great resource. And I think she has a lot of other different practice videos on her channel as well. So definitely check that out. I'll put her name in the chat so you can see.
And I love, she also has some animated, like theoretical little things like theory facts and music facts that I really, really enjoyed it. So Sam, if you're listening, I always forget, what is the right name for the channel? Sam Can?
I think so.
Yes. Okay. If you're here, we really enjoy your channel. I also I will post a link to another video. So one of my violin students from UTRGV, Clyde Guerra, who was in my studio this is already his 5th year, because after he finished, or actually 6th, after he finished his bachelor's in music performance, he decided to stay in school and get his master's. Clyde is very, very well known in the Valley. He is not only very talented violinist, but also a very talented singer. If you remember, he was on Voice, that's Mexican Voice, and he's just really, really talented student. But he has had his channel for a very long time. And so I always was wondering, because on his channel, he posts his singing videos. And I was always hoping that he would also include some of his violin in his videos. Well, one of his latest videos, actually, he did play violin, and then he did such a great job within the song. So he got a lot of views on that one. Yes, and Esther's typing in his, yes. And so we're definitely posting a link of that in comments after this live is over, because I'm just really proud of Clyde just doing so well in both in singing and just keeping up his YouTube channel and all of his accomplishments. And I'm just specifically very proud that he did include some of his violin playing in that video, and it's really, really good. So yes, so
we have a few comments.
Okay, go ahead.
So Martina says, good morning.
Good morning.
Ella Nature saying there, so glad to see you. And I guess that's her kids, right?
Yes, yes. Aw.
And then Angel says, good morning. Good morning,
Angel.
Good morning. Angel was with me in the clinic, so it's fun to see you again virtually. Adriana says, good morning. PSJA ISD.
Yes, Adriana. Yay, great.
And then, yeah, I think that's it for now, but we have a lot of good mornings.
Yes, thank you so much, guys. Thank you for helping us to make this fun, because that's what life is all about. It's about conversation over the cyberspace, I guess. So today is a very interesting day. It's a very meaningful day for me and for, I think, most of the classical musicians, because today is Clara Schumann's birthday, September 13th. And since I was a teenager, for the first time when I learned about Clara Schumann and her career, during my, in my high school, during our music history class, I was extremely inspired by her. And to kind of summarize her, Clara Schumann, this would have been her 201st birthday, by the way. So even though she lived so long ago, she remains hugely influential in how we perceive the soloist at work. She was among several musicians who began touring extensively in the 19th century, giving concerts for the public rather than exclusively for wealthy elites. So she was one of the first, concertizing musicians at that point, where they just finally started making more of the public appearance rather than just exclusively for the rich. And then another thing that was, because she did so many things. She was the first to do so many things, including her being a woman performer. She was one of the first who actually made a living. Now, mind you, she was married to Robert Schumann, famous composer, and she had 9 children. So after, Schumann, it was a sad story, because Schumann he had some kind of breakdown. She was in the mental facility, basically. So she remained, she did not remarry after his death. And although she could, of course, she was very, very successful, and she was very, very popular, I guess, and she had proposals, but she chose to stay independent and concertized, and she supported her family for a very long time. Now, one of my favorite things that she was doing she was one of the first to do. It says that according to known for technical prowess, she was also admired for memorizing music she played, which amazed contemporary critics. So I really love that about her because, right now, when I was during my days, when I was 7, I started studying, and in my school and in conservatory, of course, it was a given that we performed all of our repertoire from memory, except for chamber music repertoire, right? That's traditionally performed with music, but it goes back to, of course, Paganini was one of the performers that did it, but he mostly played his own music, But Clara Schumann was the one who included contemporaries and also classical music by Beethoven and Mozart in her concerts, and she was one of the first ones to actually do the music of someone else, not just her own, from memory, which is amazing, and I'm just really, really happy to think about that. And then, I started thinking of, we take for granted the equality right now that we have. I was born, in the 20th century. I'm not going to tell you exact year, but and it was totally normal for me. There was never a conversation of whether I would be allowed to pursue a career as a performer, a violinist, because I was a girl or a woman. Well, believe it or not, it wasn't like that before. And in fact, violin for a very long time was considered a masculine instrument. Who knows why? And so I remember one of my favorite violinists, Camilla Urso, who was the first actually female violinist who was allowed to study in Paris Conservatory. She was born in 1842. And she was also, I think, the first woman violinist to appear in concert in the United States. She ended up living in the United States, I think in Nashville, in Tennessee. She made her home later. But how amazing it is that this was the situation. And I love one of her biography. What do you think of that? So Camilla studied at Paris Conservatory for 3 years. She was admitted in June of 1849, and she was 7 or 8 at that point. She was not accepted right away, though, because she was the only 8-year-old when her family arrived to Paris. So she was too young to audition. Also, the only females who were previously accepted into the conservatory were allowed to study. So here are the feminine instruments in those days that were considered feminine and were women allowed to play and study. So piano, organ, and harp. And then they were also in Paris Conservatory. Women would be allowed to study harmony, keyboard harmony, and solfege, and that's it. On top of that, most of the time, those women who did graduate from Paris Conservatory, they only were allowed to perform, what is it called? Not in public, but just like for friends and family or company and so
like
forth.
Salon concerts, and just mainly to be entertainment as they were entertaining guests.
Yeah, but not make money, not professionally. How crazy. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine you going to school and wanting to study violin and people would say, this is only for the boys. How can you even say that violin is a masculine instrument? I don't know who even decided that. But anyway, that was weird. But one of my favorite remarks here is that, so she was accepted by this very famous pedagogue in Paris Conservatory who taught her for free because of her talent. But so he was known for rigorous coursework and strictness, keeping a stick on hand to beat any student that did not keep up. And Camilla, despite being female, was not exempt from his punishment. I mean, how would you feel if your teachers had a stick in their hands when they were
not great?
Yeah, that's not
great.
But I remembered actually when I studied in Moscow Conservatory, of course, we didn't have people beating anybody, but we did have a professor, and oddly enough, she was a woman. She was very famous. She was very good, and she also had a reputation for being very strict. And I remember my friends who were in her class. They knew that if she got too upset with the way they were performing, she would throw the music stand at them. And mind you, we had these really heavy wooden music stands in our studios. So I'm just very happy that I did not have to study with people like that. And also that nowadays, this is not very common. So I'm just really, really, really grateful. So that was just an amazing story, I think, for us to think about how many things were accomplished, by women, just to go up against so much resistance and keep up something that they were very passionate about. And I think it's not so much about persistent or willpower. I think it's about love. I think that's when you're motivated to a degree where you don't care who thinks what, because you just can't help but do otherwise. And so I thought this was just an amazing story. And Clara Schumann, if you have any comments, please pitch in. If you have any other favorite women performers or composers, there's so many. We're definitely going to celebrate them here, and we're going to talk about them, during the time, as long as we're doing this. But this was very close to my heart, especially the fact that Clara, she was married, she had children, and she was doing her thing back then where it was completely against everything that was normal in those days, to be appearing in tours in front of public, to be a woman, to play with orchestras, that of course, most, you have to also imagine, like, orchestras would be comprised of men. I mean, right? The conductors would be men. So the fact that she had so much respect and in the classical music world, that she basically ruled, she dominated her influence in such a degree that she could do basically whatever she wants. So this is just, thinking of today's situation. We all have to deal with it in different ways, because many of us cannot do what we did before, and we're finding the ways, men, women, it doesn't matter. We're all in this together, right? And it's just wonderful to see. We were talking about some of the concerts we saw that are taking place now, the other day.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
I think there was one in Germany that took place. It was a symphony orchestra. I'm not sure. I don't remember which one because I just kind of briefly saw it. But there was an orchestra playing, and there was an live audience with masks on and distance. So that was really exciting to see that there are some performances starting to take place. And hopefully soon America will be able to follow suit, with that. And that would be really exciting.
And of course, we're very fortunate to play stringed instruments, because there's definitely less controversy about string performances.
Because you're not, there is some uncertainty about playing wind instruments. And I know, like, there's some, like, my friend's university is, like, they're still having wind instruments, but they basically, like, they have to have some sort of cover on the bottom of their bell, and that's supposed to, like, dispel anything. But it's hard to say because you're blowing with so much force through the instrument. I don't know how. So
it is definitely more controversial. At least we can put a mask. At least we can put a mask and on our faces, and then when we're producing the sound, thankfully it's not coming out of us. So whatever waves we're making in the air, they're traveling from the wood and the metal. And as I think, as by now we already know that thankfully the virus does not live very well on surfaces. So this is huge, blessing. Right.
As far as we know, as far as we've heard. So we're not scientists. So.
Yeah, but as far as from what we heard, the most important thing is to just cover your face, and so that makes me grateful. At least we don't have to deal with some of that, and I'm sure things will be figured out, and I'm sure the music will continue on. Yeah. I've seen in Russia, they've been doing concerts already for quite a while, although they have very small audience. But the musicians, they're just kind of dispersed a little bit further apart from each other. And some of them are not even wearing masks, which I don't know if this is smart or not. But technically, they've been doing it already for quite a while. So things are looking at, how do you say it? On the lookout?
Starting to look up.
Yeah. So my English sometimes I get, All right. So now that we did the wake up part, now to the Rosin part. Okay. Right? So what do we have today? We decided to do C major scale.
Yes.
And the reason I decided today I would play viola. And as you remember, last week we did a G major scale, which is the scale that starts on the lowest note of violin. So I thought today we'll go with C major because for both cello and viola, it is the lowest note. So it'll be kind of like equivalent, right?
Yeah,
So
it'll be fun.
So
And I can use my C string today.
Yeah. Oh, yes. I love, to be honest, I'm so glad that I finally had enough time to start experimenting with viola because I absolutely adore the sound on the C string. It is so deep. It just makes me feel so powerful, and it doesn't squeak so much. There's no E string. One of the things on E string that drives me nuts, and if you're a violinist, if you have the same pet peeve, is when it starts squeaking. You know how when you play this beautiful melody and then you have to play open E string and then it goes. It just drives me insane because I kind of know why it happens, but sometimes in the heat of a moment you don't think about it. So to be honest, I started kind of cheating. So now when I am playing a passage that is very important, I try to actually do a fourth finger as much as I can, sadly, because I don't want to risk in the performance having that squeak, which is super annoying, especially when you're listening back to your own recording and it's so beautiful, then it goes. So one of the things I love about viola, apart from having this really powerful sound, of course, I'll play more on tune right now, I promise. Is not having that squeaky E string. All right, so let's check. So guys, hopefully you have your instruments with you. I hope you follow with us because that's the whole purpose of this little warm-up tips session is for us just to have fun, to kind of get our day off to a good start and motivate all of us to practice and take some time with our instruments, right? So here's an A. Why did you I love that roaring C string on cello. It's incredible.
It is fun.
Yeah. All right. So let's do just C major in thirds, just to start off. Okay, you start maybe 2 per bar or 1 per bar, whatever you want.
Let's do 2 per bar.
Okay. So we're just gonna do a C major scale a third apart. Satisfied. Listen to this resonance. It just keeps going. Oh, this is so much fun. Thirds are so beautiful. And actually, I remember studying in music history back, they were actually brought into the classical music by British English composers. We got a comment?
Thanks for the videos. They're super helpful.
Oh, you're so welcome. You're so welcome. Thank you for watching and thank you for showing up to spend this little morning with us. I hope you have your instrument. So I remember reading that it was actually from the English music that the thirds were brought into classical music, and when they were just discovered, that in Europe, it was they just created this incredible sensation because of that sound. And partially why thirds and sixths are so exciting, because they're not perfect consonances, right? They're imperfect consonances. So even apart from, for example, octaves, fifths, fourths, they all of the the overtones of both sounds are so much in tune that it creates the perfect consonants. But with thirds and sixths, it's not quite. There's some overtones that don't. And so that's why it gets, not only sounds very beautiful as a consonant, but it also has a little bit of that, a buzz in the middle that is created by those, a little bit of dissonance of the overtones. And I think that's what makes it so exciting. So.
And I was going to say that another reason that thirds are really exciting is because they have the power to make major or minor.
That's true.
If you have a fifth, it's open. If you have a fifth, it could be major or minor. You could add a major third or a minor third on top. So, like, for instance, if I play C and G and Dr. Sides plays an E flat.
Where's the E flat on viola?
And then if you change it to E natural, it's a completely different mood. And it's just because of that third that changes the entire mood of the sound.
Okay, can you go C, G, C?
Yeah.
Can we do that? That was a complete, it didn't flash good, but I couldn't let go. That was such a great, I brought it in, yes. And this brings me to the concept of intonation. And so a lot of times, with my students, we talk about that a lot. When something is out of tune, if the third, degree of your scale is out of tune, that just makes it's a cruel and unusual punishment for us, for musicians, because we're so conditioned to figure out whether we're hearing major or minor. And when the third degree of your scale is not quite right, then it just creates this, panic inside for me, because I can't figure out what's major or minor.
Yeah, and there are times in certain Middle Eastern music where quarter tones are super exciting and they're used really regularly, which is really fun. But when we're playing classically in classical Western, not Western like cowboy, but Western part of the world.
Western European classical tradition. Yeah.
In the Western European classical tradition, we don't really use quarter tones. But there's a lot of newer music that's coming out now by a lot of different composers that makes use of glissandos and quarter tones and lots of things that are really fun and exciting. So if you find yourself getting bored of Western European classical scales, there is more out there, but I just wanted to throw that tidbit out there just for fun, because, I think one of the things that's really important for us classical musicians to do is to also promote new ideas and new music, especially with, how much everything is changing now.
That's true.
It's, we have, and then a lot of composers have had a lot more time to write. They're at home, they have all this time to write, so there's a lot of really cool music coming out. So, but yes, for the purpose of today, thirds are.
And also, speaking of that too, even in Western European tradition, of course, if you're a pianist, it's up to whoever tuned your piano, to the intonation. But being stringed instruments, even within the Western Western European classical tradition music, we do have a little bit of a leeway, so we can make what we call expressive intonation. Yeah. We can make a flat a little bit flatter, or a sharp a little bit sharper sometimes, and sometimes that it is very effective. Of course, when you're in a chamber ensemble, when you're playing with others, you want to be very careful about doing that. But that is just the beauty of playing a stringed instrument. And even though intonation can seem as a curse sometimes, but the fact that we have to deal with intonation all the time, it's not ready-made. But it is also kind of a blessing in a way, because we can really kind of dial up the expressivity when we know how to use that expressive intonation, and figure out if we want this particular minor key to sound even more minor, we can go a little bit lower on that flat, right?
Or vice versa. A minor.
Yeah. So that leading tone G sharp.
Because if you play a G sharp just normal, it sounds a little flat if you play it just where it lands in a normal fingering pattern. But if you have that expressive intonation, you can push it up a little bit to lead you. Because if I just play,
yes, exactly. So again, so when you're
really unsatisfying.
So, but of course, each type of intonation has its own place. For example, if you're going back to auditions, everyone is thinking, learning excerpts, orchestra excerpts for Allstate, and so of course here you want to be very, hit the center of the pitch, what we call, right? Because it's orchestra intonation. You want to be more sort of like piano intonation, where everything is tempered, everything is divided evenly, more or less.
Yeah, in a way, but you also want to showcase that you're able to hear those patterns, and if there is a leading tone, it should be a little higher. And if you're tuning,
like even in an orchestra audition, is that safe?
Oh yeah, I mean, because if you're playing with an ensemble,
yeah, that's true.
You're gonna hear that, and I think it's sometimes if you're playing in a certain scale and you don't do that, it can sometimes, as I demonstrated, it can actually sound out of tune if you don't.
That's
do
true.
That
that's
in
true.
a way.
You just have to be a little bit more careful with orchestra stuff, because it is a little bit more averaged out.
Right? And obviously don't go crazy.
Yeah.
It's just a very small, minute amount, but it's definitely there, and I think it's important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So with that, we were thinking of giving you a little bit, apart from a C major scale, just a little bit of a workout for your bow arm, and we're talking about different articulations, right? So why don't you show us?
So I sometimes like to, with scales, you can actually practice with different bowings or articulations depending on what you want to practice. And last time we also talked about the bow. We talked about using full bows during practicing and when you're practicing scales and technique. Today I wanted to talk a little bit more about different bowing patterns. For example, this actually shows up in the Dufour 13 etude that is being asked for at Allstate auditions, but it's also a great etude to practice even if you're not doing Allstate. But there's this stroke. It's staccato, slur, staccato, so separate slur, separate slur. And that can be a hard stroke to master if you're, thinking of also playing the notes of the etude and the slur. So it's sometimes helpful to take that kind of bowing and take it out of the etude or piece that's giving you trouble and plug it into something like a scale that's a lot more simple and something that you know really well already. So, for example, if I were to practice that bow stroke in a C major scale, just like I did, I could do. I could do broken thirds. So it's not a scale in original scale. If you want to do like broken thirds, you could do it like that. Or you could do. So you could do just a normal scale, or you could do broken thirds like I showed you prior to the normal scale. And you can do it as fast or as slow as you want. You can slow it down. Gradually speed up. You can challenge yourself to see how fast you can go. And you can go as many octaves as you like. The C major scale, since it starts so low, usually a fourth octave is pretty feasible if you want to challenge yourself. in that way. But it's a great way to practice bowings, to take them out of context in the piece or etude and plug them in to either a scale or broken thirds as needed. For Duport, the reason I like broken thirds is because there's actually a lot of broken thirds in the etude itself. So there's a lot and the way you can practice that is by playing, that's just a broken third scale. It's super, super common technical exercise. So if you can practice scales like that and teach your fingers to move in that pattern, it'll be much easier when you come back to the etude and say, oh yeah, my fingers are familiar with that movement.
Hey, can you actually play that so maybe they can play along?
Yeah.
Just the whole scale, just slowly,
Yeah,
so
sure.
they can. So you guys, if you have your cellos with you, you can just.
So I'll just do. I won't do broken thirds. I'll just do a normal scale, slow tempo, bum ba-dum, bum bum ba-dum, just to start. And we're gonna do this bowing. So that's the example of the bowing we're gonna use. Okay, 1, 2, ready, go. Awesome. Maybe we'll do it one more time, just a little faster, just for kicks. 1, 2, ready, go. And that's it. And you can go as fast as or as slow as you want. You can also do broken thirds, as I showed you. I won't demonstrate that today because I want Dr. Sykes to have time to demonstrate hers as well. But I will post after this in the description. I'll post a link to a sheet music version of broken thirds written out, because I know that it can feel a little confusing if you're not used to playing them, but it's a really great exercise, and you can do them in any key, major or minor, and it's really a wonderful way to warm up and to just get to know your fingerboard.
That's great. Great job, Esther. Great. I think, did you get any comments?
Let me check.
Just to make sure.
Daryl said, what advice would y'all have for the young aspiring string instructors for teaching the older adult beginner?
Wow, this is great. Let me demonstrate really quick the bowing technique I wanted to show you guys, and then we'll definitely address that. Thank you, Daryl. That's a wonderful question. So with the whole all-state, all-region craze right now going on in Texas, both actually violin and viola etudes have staccato in them. So I thought I could show you a very simple way of practicing staccato in your warm-up, so that before you get to playing everything with the notes and in etude, where you have to count everything, you have to make sure you do the right thing in the left hand. This way is really great for separating and just practicing just the stroke itself, and then bringing it into your etude, just like Esther was saying, and adding all of the other difficult things that are there, right? So here is, my favorite way to practice staccato is first to start kind of on an open string and just do something like this. I will go down, and then so, and if that's too many, you could do just 1 down and 4 up like this. Or you could do it in the middle of the bow. You want to try that? So the key is, if you're practicing for staccato, just to get a stroke in a slow tempo, it doesn't matter as much. But if you are practicing so you could play it faster, the important thing is to make sure that your bow distribution is the same as it would be in the faster tempo, meaning you have to use very little bow. So each stroke will have to start and stop. As soon as you start the little note of staccato, you have to stop almost immediately. And so because of that, you end up using very little stroke, very little bow, and that's the secret to effective practicing of staccato. So let's try it together. So you see, and actually when you're just starting, this more flexible part of the bow is easier to get a good staccato than all the way here. So I will practice right here. So if you guys want to go with me, so we're going to go one.
And you can do this on cello too, if you want.
Really? Okay, you want to do it?
Sure.
Right. Let's try it together. So we're going to start in the middle, and we're going to go. So this is going to be 1, 2, 3, and 4. Something like that. Ready? Ready? Go. 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1, 2. And try to use very little bow. Right? So thank you. Yeah, it's weird, but really, so the progress should be, if you want to really have a very effective progress, so you should go toward using less and less bow and making the notes shorter and shorter so that you have silence between the notes, but without speeding up. So now how do we put it to the scale, right? You want to do scaling? Oh, I'll just do it by myself.
Yeah,
so,
go ahead.
So it's going to go, with the scale, I would do it like this. Yeah, you want to try it? So if you have your instruments, let's try it. And remember, use very little bow, especially on the down bow when you have one separate note. Don't use up a lot of bow, because then you'll be stuck at the very top of the bow. Try to stay here where the bow is flexible, right? And so let's try to do that. Scale up and down.
Do you want me to do it?
Oh, let's do it. Yeah, that would be fun. Can we do it in thirds? Sure. So I'll start this time. 1, 2, ready, go. Little bow. Now let's go to see answer Daryl's questions. Yeah, this is great.
And I wanted to also mention, so up-bow staccato like that it tends to be more common in violin and viola repertoire, but it definitely shows up in cello repertoire too.
Really?
Yes, like in a lot of Haydn, there's a lot of da-da-da-da-da, like just showy, flashy things in the different Haydn concertos where there's up-bow staccato. It's usually kind of a flashy thing. And there's also a piano caprice, I think number 12, where it's pretty much it's like chord, da 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 chord, da 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 chord, and there's a lot of up-bow staccato. So it's a good skill to have and something to learn, and it's always fun to be able to do if you decide you want to be flashy with something.
But I have to put a disclaimer. I know that it's really fun to have to play a fast staccato. However, your how do you say, your fate, the fate of your career does not hang on your ability to do fast staccato. And actually, one of my most favorite violinists I guess I could call him my idol as far as violinist, David Oistrakh. He never had staccato, but he was incredibly famous and one of the greatest violinists, I think, and musicians who ever lived and was recorded. So I absolutely adore his playing, his musicianship and his technique. He had,
Bless you.
sorry, thank you. It's allergies, I promise. I'm not sick. So anyway,
Well, they're on the screen, so it doesn't matter.
yeah, but just in case, you know, we're all corona free.
Yeah, we're good.
So anyway, so just, you know, as fun as it is to show off, really most of the time you can substitute staccato in your piece with just a fast spiccato and no one will know.
Yeah, definitely. That's a really good point. I'm glad you brought that up because you definitely, it's not a make or break. It's fun if you can do it. And honestly, when I play in the beginning of Hyde in D, there's this Hyde in D major cello concerto. There's a spot that a lot of people do up with staccato, but a lot of people also just play normal. And I do that. I do the normal one. Daryl said, bless you.
Thank you,
but
Daryl.
I just do a normal spiccato like Dr. Seitz mentioned because for me, it's more reliable. So like, you know, definitely do what feels most comfortable for you in the performance and in the practice room. And it doesn't, you know, make or break you as a musician for sure. I'm really glad you mentioned that.
And thankfully in the all regional state etudes this year, a staccato that happens, it's not super fast. So it's more about the quality. So I highly recommend if you start somewhere with this exercise and then expand it, that would be great. So now, yes, this is such a fun question about how do you teach an adult, performer. So I think it starts with the goals. Number one, of course, for someone who is adult and they already have the career that they love and enjoy, or they might have retired already, they will have very different goals, you know, in mind for playing an instrument. So number one, the repertoire will be very, very different. I think also even with my students who are studying, you know, for degrees in violin to be professionals, I still find that with every student, you have to change your approach. That's why we do private lessons, you know, on applied instruments. You can't just create one method and just kind of cookie cutter apply it. But especially when you are, when it comes to adult violinists, and I learned that here in the US when I came. And so the first thing is the repertoire. You have to make sure and have them play something that they enjoy. I think that's the most important thing. So the usual route where, okay, first we want to make sure that we learn scales and etudes, and only after that we'll play something, that doesn't really work for adults. I think for adults, it's very important to include the repertoire that they enjoy right from the start. And sometimes they will learn, like my adult students, they learn much more from the piece that they're playing than the scales. So for me, a lot of times it's actually backwards. We would start with pieces that they maybe would like to play. Maybe they will set a goal. They would say, a lot of times an adult would come to me and say, you know, I would love to play this piece on the violin. You know, how do I get there? And so we would actually start with that. And then we kind of plan backwards from there. Okay, so if you want to play this piece, you know, we'll break it up into, sometimes it's literally just measure by measure. And based on what the goals of this piece would be, then we would work on the setup, we would work on the intonation. I definitely introduce scales and etudes too, but we kind of work backwards from repertoire rather than with kids. You usually start with basics, right? And then of course the setup, I am not I'm particular in the ways that I want them to have the best possible setup, because that's what, you know, will determine how far they can go with their performing later or playing on the instrument. But you have to realize that the adult body is already formed, so sometimes you can't just expect it to bend in a certain way in the bow arm in the left hand. So we have to experiment. A lot of times we experiment with even the chin rest. Sometimes the chin rest in the middle would actually help a lot, because there's less twisting and reaching. Or for others, it's the other way. The shoulder rest. Some people, you know, like much higher shoulder. So I find that with adults, there's more of adjustment in that way, where we could use all of those, you know, convenience things like chin rest and shoulder rest to help them to be more comfortable in the instrument. Because again, the body, we don't realize how much we twist on the violin. And so for violinists, definitely for me, that's what my goal is, to make sure that remember that this is more for enjoyment, not that it can't be just as good as a young performer. I've seen many adults, including Daryl, incredibly talented, and I'm amazed at the progress they make in a very short time, in spite of the fact that they never played, never touched violin when they were children. But, you know, in the back of my mind, I do always keep in mind that for the adult players, it's more for enjoyment, and that makes actually it more fun for me, because I don't get stressed about, are they going to pass their exam, are they going to pass their juries, and so forth. So what do you think?
Yeah, so I've actually taught quite a few adults over the past few years, and I agree. I think it's goal oriented, and I do start even my adults with the basics, especially if they, you know, have some technical questions. A lot of them come to me saying, like, I want my cello to sound like really good, but I sound scratchy, or it doesn't sound like I want to, which I think, you know, lends itself to technical exercises or technical things in the bow hand. And then, but I think it is different than when you're teaching someone young, you know, who's maybe like a little kid, or someone who's maybe wanting to pursue it as a career. You have to be a lot more, I think, meticulous about those things at times. But I think, you know, it's really dependent on what the person wants. Like, I had one student, she was a lady who, her goal, she really wanted to put on a little recital at a nursing home, and she was interested in playing some pop songs. So I arranged the pop songs for her to play. And so we weren't so much focused on technique as we were more on rhythm and playing the notes and figuring out the kind of sound that she wanted. So we did spend some time on technique and basics, but it wasn't like the bulk of the lesson. Whereas I had another student who, she was really, really focused on, like, I want to sound good. I want this really nice tone on my cello, and I want to sound like, I want to have a tone that sounds professional, but I can't get it there. So we actually would spend more time on bow exercises and technique things and incorporating that into repertoire. But for her lessons, it was a little bit bigger of a portion of the lesson, because she really, that was a goal of hers. So I think some people come in with like more technical goals, and maybe they don't realize it's a technical goal, but it kind of is. And then some people come in with just like, I just want to play for fun. And of course, there always is an element of technique, because you don't want anyone to ever get injured. And there is a potential for injury if you don't play with the correct technique. But I also agree that, you know, it's different. It's going to be different working with someone's body who is already an adult rather than a child, in that way. And I think I love teaching adults. It's super fun because they're doing it because they want to. Sometimes when you teach kids, I love teaching all ages, but sometimes I've taught kids who you can clearly tell that the parent is kind of just forcing them to take lessons, and they're not super excited about it. And it's really hard to keep their attention because they don't really want to be there. And I think that's admirable, because there's definitely times when my mom had to push me because I didn't want to practice, or
She hated me
at times. No, I never. But I'm glad she made me do it, because I'm a professional cellist now, and I couldn't have done it without her support.
Do you remember how I made you say the note name that you
I
hate? Oh, she hated
but
that
it served me well. It served me well.
So at some point I made all my kids, you know, whatever instrument they played, to say the name of the pitch they were playing, because I wanted to make sure they're thinking pitch first. And they hated it, but now, I do that to my students too a lot.
Yeah.
And then I tell them that story. So I know it's not very fun, but you'll thank me later, like Mr.
And
Monk
here I am, thank you later. So, but yeah, I think I forgot what I was saying. But
sorry.
No,
with
it's
adults,
okay.
But the kids, you know, sometimes parents force them. And
and with adults, they're really enthusiastic and fun to teach, because they're there because they want to be, and they're choosing to be there. So it's always, you know, it's a special kind of fun. And also, you know, since they're an adult, it feels like you're more on a level playing field, like conversation wise. And, you know, that's also fun, because especially after a lot of high energy teaching with a lot of little kids, it's kind of a nice relief to have an adult. And you're like, oh, I don't have to like be like super high energy and like give you stickers the entire lesson. And like I can just like, Oh, hi, it's so good to see you and have like a normal adult conversation for an hour, which is nice.
And that's true. I like that you brought up. You really know that person wants to be there. They really, and also being an adult, I think they appreciate the effort the teacher makes, because I remember myself as a kid and thinking, oh, my teacher has the easiest job in the world. She just sits there and tells me what to do, and I'm the one who does all the work, right? And once we become teachers, we realize it's not like that at all, and how much work. So I think with adults, I always had a great experience, because any adult that I ever taught, they came to me because they had the love for the music, the love for making music. They usually have more time and maybe resources to dedicate to it. And it's just a wonderful thing. And we have to remember that it's interesting, because now that we have much less ways of entertaining ourselves, especially something actionable that we could do, except besides sitting on the couch and watching TV shows. I think the action that is involved in making music and playing an instrument is enough to keep us a little bit more active, inside the homes. And so I see that people more and more are turning to that, and that's really wonderful. And speaking of Clara Schumann, in those days, that's what people did for fun. When they got together and they had a party, they didn't call a DJ. They just brought their instruments, and then they went to a music store. They bought the latest scores that came out, or their scores that were in the family passed on, and they would open up their stands and sit down and just play some Telemann, some, I don't know, Mozart, just for fun. And so now I feel like the society is turning more to that, which is really amazing.
Definitely. Daryl said, even though I only want to play for fun, sometimes because of bad technique, it sounds bad, which is discouraging to the adult. Dr. Seitz has always made time to explain and help me correct my technique so that I don't become discouraged.
Oh, thank you, Daryl. I appreciate it. But, it's true. No matter how talented you are, and that's why we love violin, we love music. It never ends, no matter how long you play, every day you practice and you figure something out so exciting that opens the new door, and then there's new path, and it's just amazing. So thank you, Daryl, for this comment. It means a lot. And I just love what I do, and I'm so excited to have my daughter here. That's another blessing. That's the reason we started this, because we're together and we wanted just to chat with you guys and have a party every week. So remember that normally we do this on Saturday, but because of the clinic that was scheduled yesterday at 11, that we had all state excerpts clinic, we moved it to Sunday. And also the last week was very crazy for me. So guys, your prayers would be appreciated, because there was some important step that I had to take paperwork wise, and submit this very, very extensive amount of paperwork, where I basically had to describe everything I've done since I started teaching at UTRGV. And so I'm very grateful that I was able to submit it on time, but it was crazy because I had to chain myself to a laptop and cancel everything that week. But I did make a deadline, and now just pray is appreciated as it's going up, through all the stages, that you guys please send your positive thoughts and prayers that it all comes out good. And then hopefully we'll have some really, really exciting news for you sometime later.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I think that's it. Thank you all for showing up, and have a wonderful, wonderful week. Remember, next time we will be go back on Saturday, 11. And also, I will definitely be posting this week the second etude that I never posted for viola, Campagnoli. I'm really excited. I am practicing it, and I'm ready. So sometime this week, the Campagnoli All Region Etude, All State All Region Etude will be coming out in its entirety. And I'm gonna, even though it's not very fast, but I'm going to record the All State tempo requirement. And as always, I will record a much slower part with the metronome, so that it will be easy to practice.
Yep.
Yeah. And I think, Esther, you've done already both, right?
Yes, both of my etudes are out already, the Popper 7 and Duport 13. So make sure to check those out. They have both fast and slow playing. And the Popper is a little bit more chromatic and a little bit more technically challenging. So there's also a section in the middle on the Popper to just explain it a little bit. Duport is a little more self-explanatory. but there is still a slow version.
Yes, thank you guys. Thank you, Adriana, Sarah Beth, Karina, Aldape, all my wonderful friends who are orchestra directors for sending your students to watch these. Please let us know if there are any particular exercises you want us to cover during the session, because I know that you've been using those as homework for your students, which is wonderful. We love it. So keep us posted. Let us know what would be particularly useful for you and your students. We would love to do that right here on the air, or do more of that on our videos. And thank you so much for showing up.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, guys, and have a great week. And we'll see you next week.
Thank you, Adriana.
Or I guess this week, since it's already Sunday.
Yeah,
But
so
we'll
excited.
see you on Saturday at 11 a.m. to wake up and smell the rosin.
Yes.
Once more.
Oh, and guess what we're doing this week? We're doing the merch search, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
We're going to be
so we are working
continuing
on
our work on the merch.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
we are planning to roll it out soon. And until then, have a wonderful week. Stay well and practice on. Bye-bye.